My plan for today is I have a PowerPoint. I'm going to walk through the application process, really going over all of the steps of the process, and then have plenty of time at the end for Q&A. So the Mary and Gary Becker Social Justice Award, this is the inaugural award. It's going to be an annual award that will offer to a project or a ministry that is led by a Just Faith Ministries graduate or a group of program graduates that are creating social change in their local community, in their state, in the country, or around the world. The goal of the award is twofold. One is to recognize those who are working on behalf of compassion and justice. So really recognizing the work of Just Faith Ministries program graduates. But the second goal is to financially support the project or ministry. So providing the three finalists and the award recipient a monetary support, as well as national recognition for the work that project or ministry is doing and the impact it has, again, locally, on a state level, across the country, or globally. The Mary and Gary Becker Social Justice Award is in honor of Mary and Gary Becker. Mary and Gary were participants in the very first Just Faith Ministries class, which is exciting that this award, its first year, is lining up with our 20th anniversary. So they were a part of that first class that took place 20 years ago in Louisville, Kentucky, and have been supporters of Just Faith Ministries since then. You can learn more about their story. Mary wrote their story for us, and that's available on the Becker Award webpage. So I'd recommend taking a look at that, getting to know who they are, and honoring the life of Gary. They have done amazing work for justice that we'll continue to give more information about throughout the award process, but also at the celebration event where we announce the award recipients. Okay, so who's eligible? Who can actually apply for the Justice Award? Any program graduate of a Just Faith Ministries program can apply. So that is anyone who's done, let's say, a few decades ago, the 32-week Just Faith version, or even someone who's just done one of the 8-session programs that we have now. And they could have done multiple programs or just one. The only exception is for board emeritus and board emeriti. And the reason for that is we want to protect against any possibility of the selection committee being swayed by personal relationship, given that we are even nationally a community that knows our program graduates. We want to allow for that bit of separation. So that does not mean that a board member or board emeriti couldn't be connected to the project or ministry that is being nominated. They just cannot be the one who's submitting the application. So if you are a current board member or former board member, you are welcome to support someone else applying, maybe even reaching out to someone in your network who you think might be the right person to submit the application and helping them through the process, but it cannot be you that is submitting that application. Only one application can be submitted per project or ministry. So again, this is going to be an important time to consider all of the program graduates who are connected to that project or ministry, work together to decide who's going to be the best person to submit the application to ensure that the project or ministry gets the best viewing from the selection committee. The award recipient, so that's the person who receives the award, the first place winner, is going to be barred from any subsequent applications. If you or your project or ministry receives second or third place, you are welcome to reapply and to try again another year for that first place. And the project or ministry has to be active and ongoing. And what we mean by that is it needs to be currently in existing, serving and having an impact on the community. So it's not a project or ministry that was 10 years ago or might be in 10 years, but one that is currently taking place. So what does the application require? There are a few steps, and I will talk in more detail about a couple of these bullet points, but I want to give you a snapshot before we dive in deeper. So the application is filled out on our website, on the web page for the award. And what you do is you'll fill in a couple different fields. that have things like your name, the name of the project or ministry, a short description of the project or ministry. You'll be invited at that time, and this all has to be done at one time. So you'll be invited to upload your narrative. You'll be invited to upload a letter of recommendation, to sign the terms and conditions for the award process. And then if possible, we'd love to have a logo for the project or ministry, if that exists, and a photo of the project or ministry. So that could be a group of program graduates engaging in the work that that project or ministry does in the community. Really anything that would give a visual picture of the work that's done through that project or ministry. If you do not have a photo, or if you don't have a logo, you can still apply and you'll get a fair hearing from the selection committee, but that just adds a little bit of life and color to the application. And then finally, there's a second step to the application process, and we will go over the timeline very clearly in a minute, but that second step is a short video, and that is only required for the finalist. And the goal for that video is to be a visual telling of the story of the project or ministry and the program graduates' involvement in it. It's going to be very similar, but in video format to the narrative, a little more condensed. And we have a staff videographer who we've hired to help with this process, as well as Just Faith Ministry staff support. So there'll be a clear guidelines for that video, what's expected of the finalist, how they'll partner with the videographer to get that done. So just to be aware of that, because you want the person who's submitting the application to be comfortable in front of the camera. Again, it's going to be a short video, about 2 minutes in length, so they won't have to sit there and tell their whole story to a camera, but someone who would feel comfortable enough to do that. So how are the finalists and award recipients selected? It's a two-step process. So the first step is through a selection committee, and that selection committee includes Mary Becker, a few staff members, a few current board members, as well as program graduates. And that selection committee will review all applications. So everything I just went over on the previous slide, they'll review the narrative, they'll review the letter of recommendation, all of those other things that are required in the application, to then select and vote on the 3 finalists. Those finalists will then be announced to the broader Just Faith Ministries community. At that point, the finalists will work with a videographer to create the video. Those videos, along with the narratives, will be released to the public, and we invite everyone to then we then invite everyone to vote on who they think the award recipient should be. So that's the second tier of that kind of selection and voting process, and it'll be a public voting process. We've done a few things to kind of protect the public voting process. The first is we are allowing Just Faith Ministry graduates, as well as people who may be a part of the Just Faith Ministries community but aren't program graduates, to apply. And even beyond the Just Faith Ministries network, we are asking, and we're doing our best to ensure that folks only vote once, and we're creating a protection there by having people vote through the Just Faith network. So someone has to create a username and password to then go in and vote, and there'll be only one vote that can be cast with that username and password. Theoretically, someone could work around that, but we're going to have a little line that someone has to check before they submit, asking them to honor the system that we've set up to ensure that it's a fair voting process. And we will include directions on how to access the network, because we know not everyone who's going to want to cast a vote will be existing network members. So we'll help with that process, making it clear to anyone who might want to view those videos, read the narratives, and add their input on who they think the award recipient should be. So what are the awards? So a part of the award process is national recognition. As I mentioned, your narrative as well as the video will be released to our network, and then to the network of the finalists. And so you will get some new eyes and ears on your story and the work that your project or ministry is doing in the community. The project or ministry will also receive monetary support. So all monies will go to the nonprofit or the church that's affiliated with the project or ministry, and those funds are to be earmarked to the project or ministry to be used however they see fit to fulfill the mission. The first place award recipient will receive $4,000. The second place will receive $1,500, and third place will receive $500. And again, I want to remind you that if your project or ministry were to receive second or third place, you would have the opportunity in future years to reapply and possibly receive the award as first place recipient. So the letter of recommendation, for the next few slides, we're going to talk about the various application components and hopefully shed a little more light on the content. For the letter of recommendation, this is not some lengthy, huge recommendation. The goal for the letter of recommendation is just to provide confirmation to the content of the application from an outside source. So ideally, this is a friend of the project or ministry. Maybe if the project or ministry is done through the church, it could be the pastor or another staff member who can kind of vouch for the project or ministry's application. Can be short, 1 or 2 paragraph letter. And we do ask for some details like the individual's name, phone number, and email address so that we can follow up with them about the letter of recommendation if the selection committee sees fit to do that. Again, the goal of this person is just to offer credibility to the application. So the narrative, this is kind of the most important part of the application. The narrative is really the place to tell the story of the project or ministry and to tell the story of the Just Faith Ministries graduates who are involved in the work of the project or ministry. The narrative has some parameters around it. So in the application guide, you'll see a full list of questions that we ask the writer of the application to consider and to include in the narrative. We have provided a word count that we'd love for folks to stay within to allow for enough space for the story to be told, but not so much that it will be beyond what voters may be willing to sit down and read to really consider the award recipient. And we want the narrative to really show the personality of the project or ministry. So if there are questions that are not included in that application guide that the applicant would like to add in and to tell the story with more color, you're more than welcome to do that. We just ask that you also attend to those questions provided in the guide. We want to think of the narrative really as the story. So writing it in a way that's engaging, that draws people in as much as possible. Okay, the terms and conditions, everything has terms and conditions. This isn't the fun stuff, but I just want to review it. So the terms for the application process is that all submissions will be considered property of Just Faith Ministries. So we'll have the right to use the narrative, the video material, anything else that is submitted for Just Faith Ministries purposes. It'll also be something that the narrative that project or ministry can use on their own within their organization, but after it's submitted, it will be the property of Just Faith Ministries. The narrative is possibly down the line going to be compiled with other narratives to create a book of sorts, a way for Just Faith Ministries to tell the story of the impact of our programs. So we don't have that fully fleshed out or what that might look like down the line, but we just want applicants to know that is something we're considering organizationally. All monies that are given to the 3 finalists are to be allocated for the project or ministry. So we ask that the award recipient and the second and third place prize winners will report back to Just Faith Ministries 6 months after receiving the award monies, letting us know in just a short paragraph how those funds are being used. So if those funds aren't yet being used, let's say there's something that's a year or 9 months from receiving the monies that you want to use for a certain purpose, we would just want to know how those monies are going to further the mission and vision of that project or ministries. All righty, and timeline. So I thought I'd do a slide on the timeline just to give a really clear step-by-step process, because the application guide doesn't have a timeline that I think is quite this clear. So the first step in the application process is the submission of the application, and those are due on June 14th. So those applications are due here coming up. So I'm glad that y'all are here today to consider if you want to apply. The next step in the process is announcing the finalists. So those 3 finalists, after the selection committee reviews all applications and casts their votes, we will make that announcement publicly through an email to our community, but we will also directly contact all applicants, letting you know that you either were selected as a finalist or that you were not selected as a finalist this year, with an invitation to reapply the following year. So you should see that public announcement, but you also receive that individual announcement. If you are one of the finalists, in that announcement will be information about next steps as far as the video goes. So there'll be clear directions on what to do next. The finalist videos are due on July 30th, and those will be submitted to the Just Faith Ministries videographer. And again, details to come to the finalists. Those videos will then be turned into something more beautiful by our videographer and released to the public on September 1st. So we will release the narrative and the video to the public for all 3 finalists, with an invitation to view, consider, and vote for who should be the award recipient. That announcement will include, again, directions for how to join the network in order to cast your vote. The community will have to vote about 19 days. So they'll have from September 1st, when the announcement comes out, till end of day on September 20th to go in and cast their vote. And then the award recipient will be announced. Really excited about this. It will be announced at our 20th anniversary celebration event. So that is an event where we are going to be celebrating the last 20 years of national ministry. Part of that is going to be honoring the work of these 3 finalists in the project or ministry, and then naming the award recipient at that event. So the event is scheduled for September 23rd at 7 o'clock Eastern time. The 3 finalists need to have a representative at that event. So if the applicant for some reason is unable to attend, we would ask that someone who's connected to the project or ministry be present at that virtual event to be a part of the award recipient revealing. So it is let me add that very clearly, this is a virtual event. So it's through Zoom. So you are not required to send someone from wherever you are to Louisville, Kentucky. This will be happening virtually, so it can be attended from the comfort of your home or a place of worship. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and we will have time for question and answer. Before we jump into the questions, I've got a few in the chat. I want to remind you that this recording will be sent out in an email to you all tomorrow, so you'll be able to go back and review it or share it with anyone else who it might be relevant for them to view it, as well as a PDF of the slides I just walked through. Okay, so I've got 2 questions. Yes, so I have a question about the award monies, and want to acknowledge and celebrate that the award funds are coming from Mary Becker. So they are honoring the life of Gary Becker through this award annually, and are providing the funds to the project or ministries who are the 3 finalists. So we're incredibly grateful for the generosity of Mary Becker and her family, and for honoring the legacy of Gary's life and his ministry. Anyone else have another question? Can you submit 1 or more photos? Yes, I will double check with our website manager that it has the functionality to accept multiple, but we would love that. If you've got more than 1 photo, I welcome you to submit that with the application, and I'll ensure later today that it has the capacity for that.
My question had to do with just one person starting a program or a ministry. It wasn't the whole Just Faith group. So is that okay?
That is just fine. Absolutely. So some applicants, no doubt, will have started the project or ministry or be deeply involved with a project or ministry as a group of program graduates. Others, it might be, as you mentioned, Shelley, just an individual who felt particularly inspired to take action. Yes, someone has asked about if Good News People is qualifies. Yes, if you're a program graduate of the Good News People program, that along with any of our other programs makes you a program graduate ready to apply. I have a question about board members being in the video. That is a good question. So as I mentioned, board members or former board members cannot submit the application. And the the best thinking that we have on staff right now is that the person in the video will be the individual who submit the application. Any other thoughts or questions? Okay, wonderful. Well, I hope you have a good rest of your day, and we'll again be in touch tomorrow.